True happiness. What is spiritual happiness? What is earthly happiness? In order to understand true happiness, we have to understand the difference between earthly happiness and spiritual happiness. We have to decide what we want in this life, spiritual happiness or earthly happiness. The choice we make will determine what kind of happiness we receive. Spiritual happiness is eternal and forever and bright and shining. Earthly happiness is temporary, but feels the same as spiritual happiness, just only on a temporary basis. The confusion between earthly happiness and spiritual happiness is that they feel the same. We can get the same pleasure from earthly happiness as we can from spiritual happiness. The only difference is how long they last. Spiritual happiness comes from deep within us, in our core. Our core is who we really are. Earthly happiness comes from the outside and can make us happy in the same way as spiritual happiness can. We can gain earthly happiness from the outside only. We can gain spiritual happiness from the inside only. We must understand that earthly happiness can only be gained from the outside, and spiritual happiness can only be gained from the inside. In order to understand the separation of earthly happiness and spiritual happiness and how that affects us, we cannot choose both earthly happiness and spiritual happiness for our happiness. Because when we try and choose both, that is what creates confusion. When we try to choose earthly happiness and spiritual happiness, the confusion comes by trying to serve two separate masters. We can try to serve two masters, but we will always end up exhausted. By trying to make two separate worlds work in our lives, we can choose to serve spiritual happiness on the inside and only be entertained by earthly happiness, but not allowing earthly happiness to be our true happiness. We can choose earthly happiness as our true happiness and leave behind our spiritual happiness. For what is temporary, true and permanent happiness comes from our insides, from our core, from our spirit. Temporary happiness comes from our outside, and it comes from the earth, and from the world and the entertainment and pleasures and enjoyment we can receive from planet Earth that are all temporary. The only way to be truly happy is to look inside, to our core, and to recognize happiness as being without the world. While still living in the world, we should realize after living on this earth long enough that the outside world and the earthly world does not keep us happy. We should look inside of ourselves for true and pure and permanent happiness, because inside happiness and outside happiness are two different happinesses. True spiritual happiness that comes from the inside is permanent and eternal and has nothing to do with earthly life. We should choose to reach our core, which is our spirit on the inside, by choosing to make our spirit our true happiness while living in the world of earthly happiness and only using earthly happiness as a distraction. But we should never make earthly happiness our true happiness. If you could choose one spiritual thing to be happy for eternity, or you could choose 10 billion things to temporarily make you happy every day, what would you choose? The only way to achieve spiritual happiness is to choose you, and to choose the spirit inside of you, and to choose the spirit, which is your core, and only allow the world to be entertaining. But never make the world your true happiness. Only your spirit can ever be your true happiness.